Okay, we're going to talk about how to write the related works of a paper, a computer science paper. Here is the outline. Um, First, there are two things you need to deliver when writing related work. Number one, you need to convince readers that you know existing work, you know related work, you're expert. You need to build credit that you already know things, okay? So the way to describe you know things is that you literally explain everything that has been done in the literature when addressing the problem you are proposed to address, right? But in many cases, it's a long description. You may have 30 related work, 20 related works, right? If you describe them one by one, that will take a long time. So a key point here is to group them based on their commonality. So group of them do this. For example, reference 2, 3, 4, and 5. Another group do different things, slightly different things, such as reference 10, 11, 12, something like that. So grouping them will make it more manageable. But you need some processing after you read this paper. You know how to group them based on their properties, right? That's number one. After you articulate how each group of existing work do, reviewers and readers of the paper will be convinced that you are an expert. You know what's going on. That's number one. Number two is that you also need to articulate your novelty, your difference of your solution over existing solution, as well as your advantage over them. Okay, it's not just a novelty difference, but also advantage. My favorite example is that if you invent a flashlight that's based on solar power, like based on the sunlight. When there is sunlight, you get power, your flashlight is on to give light. Is that novel? That is novel. Nobody has invented that. But is that useful? It's not. Is there an advantage over existing flashlight that use battery? No. Because when you have sunlight, you do not need flashlight. And when you really don't have sunlight, it's in darkness that need your flashlight doesn't work because you need the sunlight to work. Okay. So that said, I hope now I made it clear why you need to articulate your novelty as well as the advantage over there. Now, when you articulate your advantage over them, be careful about the tone to use. You probably will be tempted to trash existing paper and so that you can show that your solution is good. That's not the right strategy, and that's also not appropriate. Existing paper get published, they're visible, they're good, right? Even though they have limits that you improved upon. So you should describe existing work, describe their goodness, their merits. They definitely have merits in order to be published, in order to be visible so that you get to know them, right? You don't have to praise them, without regarding the fact. Just state their goodness. They're good in doing this and that, right? You also need to say, but they didn't address this and that. They have limitation here and there. This is where my paper did. So that's how you articulate your novelty and advantage over existing work. So these are the two keys when people read, why people read related work, because they want to be convinced, number one, you know related work, and number two, your work has novelty and advantage over existing work. Okay, it's better that your novelty and advantage is significant. Now, related work, there are two places you can put related work, and you need to put related work. First, in introduction, you definitely need to describe related work to convince them you know related work and you know your novelty, even in introduction. Introduction is a place a lot of people read it. Not a lot of people will read the rest of the paper because it's longer. Reading related work will help them access whether they want to read the rest of the paper, right? If in related work, in introduction, you convince people that your work is significantly better and novel than related work, they'll be motivated to read the rest of the paper. Okay, let's say, related work in introduction should be short, definitely less than half a page, I think. Typically, close to half a page, definitely not more than 1 page. Okay, I will show you one example of my paper. Okay, this is a paper published in UBComp, top conference in ubiquitous mobile computing. This paper is called Sci-Fi Sign Language Recognition Using Wi-Fi. I will put this paper as a course material. Let's look at here, the part we describe related work section. Okay, not section, the related work part. So there is a huge barrier between deaf community and the people that don't understand or know little about sign language. Or sign language recognition, that's a problem this paper works on. Sign language recognition system would help break the barrier. There are some sign language recognition systems using camera. See, I'm trying to describe related work in the introduction section, such as camera, have a reference, or keynet. I have 4 papers. You see, I'm not describing one by one, but trying to group them so that I can describe all of them in very limited space. I also point out the difference, but they are subject to lighting conditions. So we don't have that problem because we're using Wi-Fi as a sensor to do that. Now, some other systems use lip motion. You see, that's a lot of work. However, we're different. They can recognize only finger gestures, and we have hand gesture as well, and are very sensitive to the distance and displacement of the lip motion sensor in human. We don't have the problem. So we nicely point out our advantage over them. Third group, some systems use gloves and motion sensors like sign aloud. However, we're different that they are intrusive and require sensors to be attached on fingers. You see, I described 3 or 4 groups of related works and nicely articulate what they didn't do, but what we did, right? Now let's keep going. Many papers have shown that channel status information of Wi-Fi, which this paper is also using channel state information of Wi-Fi. While many papers can be used to recognize hand gesture, 6 paper, finger gestures in a non-intrusive way. Wi-Fi signals are used to recognize American Sign Language gestures. More specifically, our paper recognizes American Sign Language gestures. These are the most relevant papers to our work. However, we have to articulate our novelty and advantage. They are only evaluated on simple American sign gestures, like 5 hand gestures, 9 finger positions, 25 hand gestures. That's their limitations. Our object is to recognize 300 basic sign gestures that are frequently used in daily life. The classification algorithm should have higher recognition accuracy and low computation cost during testing. You see, we point out that we recognize more gestures, we have higher accuracy and lower cost. Okay, there are more. Existing classification algorithms have very low recognition accuracy when the number of sign gestures increase to nearly 300. For example, these 2 papers, News KNN and DTW, we tested in a lab environment, use CSI traces of 276 sign gestures The average recognition of these two is only 68%. Moreover, KNN and DTW takes extremely long time in the test stage when there are nearly 300 possible classes. Therefore, new classification algorithms are needed. That's why we propose. You see, we see our difference. We propose is use a 9-layer convolutional network. We capture right gesture, and here let's come down. Average recognition accuracy is much higher, right? Our solution called the SignFi is the only one that's able to recognize 276 sign gestures with 95% accuracy. Okay, you see we use about 1, 2, 3 paragraphs to describe. Let me zoom out a little bit. You see it's about half a page, a little bit over half a page, to describe our novelty over state of art. We definitely articulated that we know state of art, and we in groups as well articulate our novelty over them. What's more impressive, this paper even have a figure to show that. For example, this is number of sign gestures. This is recognition accuracy. All these are existing work. And here, the blue dot is our solution. It's so clear that our solution works as well as the existing solution, but with clearly 300 number of sign gestures. So in my opinion, this is a really a wonderful way to stand out, to show, you see, there's group-related work. You see, it's so big a group, but we clearly stand out with both 3 paragraphs to describe and figure to describe. That's the introduction. Okay, related work should be better described as a longer section, right? To go to much more details. Okay, as a separate section. Now, let's show the separate section. So again, you're going to group, you're going to articulate 2 things. You know existing work, you articulate your novelty and advantage over there, right? But here you do have more space. You have probably 1 page typically, or sometimes even 2 pages. So you're also going to describe them by groups. You're also going to use the right tone to point out their merits, but as well as articulating novelty, right? Also, I would encourage to put a table if possible. If there are too many related work, put a table to group them, to show their properties. And within the table, 1 cell of the table will clearly stand out as bold fonts to emphasize your novelty and the advantage over there. Okay. So I'm going to give you 1 example. The same paper, let's go to the related work section. We're almost there. Okay. Related work section. So you see, that's how we start. There are many sign language recognition systems using different signals. We give a comparison of different sign language recognition techniques in table 4. Also, since sign language recognition needs gesture recognition, we give a summary of gesture recognition in table 5. So we have 2 subsections grouped in 2 tables, or centered in 2 tables. One is sign language recognition. One is gesture recognition. Both are related to our work. Naturally, your first subsection will be sign language recognition. Here you see we're going to give a summary. There are many things, using camera, keynet sensor as we described in the introduction, but it could be a longer description, okay? Because we do have more space. However, I think here what I want to emphasize is the table, how beautiful the table is. You know, the table is comparison of sign language recognition techniques. We have different techniques, you see different papers. Each of them is grouped. Some group only have one paper, but some have more. And this is our design. We were going to have multiple columns to show the commonalities of each group. Like, for example, what sensor do they use? We use Wi-Fi. There is another group that use Wi-Fi, right? But the rest doesn't use Wi-Fi. So the difference is clear. Now, are they intrusive? You see many of them are yes, intrusive, but we're not, okay, because they use Wi-Fi. The other group also not. Now let's go to granularity. You see this is the hand, finger, hand, finger, finger, hand, finger, finger, hand, finger, hand, finger. We have, our solution have head, arm, hand, finger. So we cover more, you know, actions or activities from head, arm, hand, and finger. So we do have an advantage here. Gesture types, static, dynamic, static, dynamic, static, dynamic, and we're dynamic. The gesture, you know, hand gesture, you can move around to sign words. Algorithm, what algorithm is used? Hidden mark model, SVM, CNN, blah, 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 blah. And we use CNN. Number of sign gestures, 26, 73, 20, 20, 20, 20. You see, here we stand out, 276. So I use bold font here to emphasize this is our clear novelty and advantage. Again, recognition accuracy, here we stand out clear. 98% in lab test, 98% in home test, 94% across both of them. So this bottom right two cells clearly articulates our novelty over existing work and our advantages. So with this table, you crafted, you could have text here, you know, to describe them, right? To describe them, and also describe them in groups. You already have the group, just describe them, articulate novelty. Now that's the first part. First, the bigger group of sign language, of related work. The second big group is gesture recognition, not necessarily American Sign Language, right? We have text description, and which is also, again, centered on the table. The table comparison with gesture recognition techniques, the same thing. We need to look for, you know, our solution over this existing solution. Existing solution are grouped. Some group are small. For example, this only have one paper. Some group is big, like this one has a lot of papers. We describe their solution, like the properties, another properties, another properties, another properties. And you see in the last two properties, I use bold fonts to emphasize that we are the best in these two cells of the table. So we articulated existing works through the table, how they work. We articulate our novelty and advantage over each group of them with these two cells. And this is the video signal. You can also have the text description here and here and here to describe them. You see, that's a longer related work section. Now, last question is where to put the related work section. You may see many people put the related work section right after your introduction and right before your system design, your proposed solution. This, in my opinion, is not a good way. Why? I have introduction. I tell very nice story, get readers interested in reading my paper. They want to know my solution. So if you don't go to your solution as section 2, but spend 1 or 2 pages that I just described, 2 tables, long description, what is going on in state of art, then people will forget the main story you have talked about introduction, and that's not good. You put a big mountain in between your introduction and the solution. Instead of you want to move the mountain back to the end. You go from introduction, motivate people to read your solution, then you present the solution, then you evaluate the solution. After everything, now you can come back to write related work section to describe related work and also articulate novelty. It's also easier to articulate your novelty of a related work if you put a related work section at the end. Why? Because you have already spent many pages to describe your solution. People know the detail of your solution. Then when you articulate a novelty over existing work, it will be easier for them to digest, right? Let's see here, where do I put it? The related work section, you see section 5. What's section 4? Section 4 is performance evaluation of your proposed system. How about section 3? Section 3 is your proposed system design. And section 2 is some background and motivation. Well, you don't need to have background and motivation for every paper, but some paper, if the background is too much, motivation, a lot of merriment to motivate people to read your solution, it's good to be there. Before that, you see that's introduction. So you do want to have introduction, motivation, and then your solution, your design, and then your evaluation, right? You want your whole story to flesh out. And then I think it's time to come to related work section here. Now you have described everything you designed, how it works, how well it works. Now you can describe what has been proposed before and why my solution is more novel. For example, you describe CNN and related work and DWT. People already read this in the main part comparison. So it will be easier when you look at the table, right? If you put this in section 2, it's really hard for them to digest. And it's bad for your flow of your whole story. You see, section 5 is right before the conclusion of your paper. That's what I suggest. Put it at the end, right before conclusion. That will make the story easier to digest. Okay, this concludes the related work writing.